to get? What was the baby ultimately trying to get according to Adlerian psychology?
Sense of belonging.
Community, yeah.
Significance, belonging, and safety. Right? So those are the three things that all of us in some way are striving for. And you know, when we think about addictions, we think about relationships, we think about even how we use and spend money, it's usually along these three lines. And we usually spend it inappropriately because we're trying to get this, or we spend it properly so that we can get these three things, right? So those things become tools for us to get this goal achievement. All right, does that make sense? All right, cool. So, Elizabeth, it's on an automatic play. Elizabeth, I want you to pass those papers out, and she's going to take us through this one little exercise. Now, I want you to keep those other things in mind as we go through this particular exercise. And we'll come back to these cards in just a bit.
Okay, so I just want to ask you to take a little time to answer these questions. There are 4 of them. And the first one would be, what is your race? And so for myself, I'll answer that. My race is that I'm white. And what is your race? In my view, is a different question than what is your ethnicity. So, and then there are 4 questions. You have.
I'll grab one.
Sorry.
No, that's
Thank
fine.
you.
I've got one.
Yay.
All right. So you can choose though. I mean, it's your concept of race. It's not mine. And then the 4 questions are: what is your race? I would say white. What do you like about being your race? Makes my life easier. Describe a time that you were proud of being your race. I have to pass on that one initially. And then describe a time when you were embarrassed of being your race. And that would be when I was 10 years old. I'm 51. I was 10 years old in 71, and I saw the footage of the 1963 Birmingham police action against the children, fire hose and dogs. And what's that? And then I'd struggle with this proud of being my race.
Yeah. So we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
So we'll just give you a couple of minutes
To think about that.
to think about those things.
Yeah. Oh, I know. We get stuff done. As a group, white people get a whole lot of stuff done. You know, like building roads, building buildings, you know. We do. And there have been times, you know, when I haven't been able to do that, so.
We'll give you just a couple more minutes, and then we'll talk about that. got about a minute or so. All right, I'm going to ask you to stop right there. The rest you obviously can do for your own homework. What we're interested in is, first of all, I want to find out, and Elizabeth will do some follow-up questions, but I'm really curious as to when the questions were asked, what came up for you? I don't want to know what's on your paper right now. Elizabeth will kind of process that with you, but I'm really interested in what came up for you as you were having to respond to the questions. What was your emotional state? What was your mental state? What was going on?
I don't want to be a part of a prejudice. And I don't believe in that.
Okay, so you don't want to be a part of a prejudiced group? Is that what you're
I
suggesting?
don't want to, yeah, I just.
Okay. Okay. Other folks, thoughts, feelings as you were thinking about those questions?
I was questioning what is race and what is ethnicity. And when she said, well, for example, I'm white, I'm like, well, that's your ethnicity, that's not your race, you're part of the human race.
Okay.
So that kind of got me, do you know what I'm saying? I was puzzled by the whole direction with it.
Okay. So that's what you thought about. But as you went the next level down,
Mm-hmm.
what as you thought about that stuff, what came up? Outside of just thinking about that first level, what was the
Mhm.
next level?
The next level was that you told us this was going to be a presentation on what were your terms?
White guilt.
White guilt.
Yes.
And I thought, well, okay, so this is about ethnicity, and so I should change the way I'm looking at this.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Anyone else have a different way of, or how did you think about the questions as they were being asked on the paper?
I put history and then historical, and I didn't realize I had the same thing in 2 different blocks.
Okay.
I have Native American background
Okay.
and also Northern Europe, Northern European white. So, in a sense, I'm really saddened by what's happened to my people. But on the other hand, my people are Scandinavians who married Native Americans and are somehow fighting harmony. So I'm really proud of that.
All right. Good. Good. Elizabeth, do you want to take us through the questions? We have about 3 minutes to go through these questions before we move to the next step.
Now, what do you want me to do now?
So let's just
Okay,
get responses
Sure.
to those.
so how did you each answer the question, what is your race?
White,
I put
Caucasian.
white Caucasian, okay.
White Native American.
White Native American.
Human.
Human, okay.
Oh, good for you.
That was where I first went, so.
Yeah. And then what do
I'm
you
sad
like,
that I didn't.
what do you like about your race, about being your race?
I don't necessarily like it, but, I mean, I feel like, I think it's changing because I feel like I've always been a part of a larger majority and not the minority, and I don't know what it's like to be a minority. I'm, just was touchy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
so
I want
you're
you to-
uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I want you to hold on to that,
Yeah.
right?
Rich in oral tradition.
Rich in oral tradition. How about you?
I said, unsure, it's just what I am.
I'm sure it's just what you are. Okay.
And then describe a time you were proud of being your race.
I have a hard time with that one. I put not sure. I don't feel like I've ever been proud of being white. I can't define that.
Okay.
Guidelines around a powwow.
Okay.
Northeast, southwest.
Yeah.
Going to the moon.
Going to the moon.
Oh, yeah, see,
Okay.
getting stuff done. Describe a time when you were embarrassed.
This is really hard. Because it's not so much what I said or did, it's what my ex-husband did that made me feel like I was not a part of who he was and his values and morals. My daughter wanted to date a black man when she was 16, and she dated one of the barbers down from Wayzata. And it was like, he wasn't, I can't be prejudiced and say, oh, it's not like a black person or a white person, because he's part of a, accepted socially as black and white at Wayzata. My ex-husband said to me, if you allow our daughter to date this man, I will divorce you over it. I was embarrassed for me and myself and who I was with, and I'm like, are you kidding me? If she can't see the color beyond, you can't see beyond the color of somebody's skin, who the hell are you? And I divorced him.
Oh,
Wow, I don't
Not
have.
right then, but it was a part of the
Right.
recognition of the morals and values and principles of who he was and I was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other folks?
War.
War, okay? So embarrassed of the war nature that we kind of get caught in.
Yeah.
So if you could rate, no, I'll just ask the question straight out. So here we are, we've got these 4 questions, and if you had a client that you asked them, you said, you know what, tell me something good about you. You ask the client that, right? So you have a teenager in your office, they're sitting there, and you're like, tell me something good about you. And they can't come up with anything. What would you say about that youth, of that client?
Self-esteem.
That they have low self-esteem, all right? So if you ask them to tell you all the bad things about themselves, and they're able to just list that stuff off, what would you say about that young person that's sitting in your office? What would you say about them?
They have an imbalance
That they have an imbalance of what?
of their understanding of self.
Of their understanding of self. And what would be the recommendation that you might give to this young person?
Homework,
What kind of homework?
to ask people
Other
that they
people.
know to make a list. Come back with 10 things, with 10 different people or 5 different people. So come back with a list.
Opinions of others of what they think of. Yeah.
Is that wrong?
No, it's absolutely right. That's exactly what I would do. I would have them look out and have people give them stuff, and we call it in business, we call it 360 feedback, right? So you go 360 degrees around you, all parts of, your home, your work, your blah, 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 and they give you feedback on your behavior and your successes and all that kind of stuff. The basic premise of this conversation is that white people are missing that 360 feedback. That as we go forward in this age of diversity and multiculturalism and that kind of stuff, white people are not taking the time or been provided the space to say, I've contributed some good things in this country. I've also contributed some bad things to this country, but that's who I am. And so part of what ends up happening is that white people in general get low self-esteem about being white. As a high school teacher, one of the things that I would ask my students, we'd go through, and whether you use the term race or ethnicity, that really doesn't matter to me as much as the sentiment that's attached to those words. But I would go around the classroom and I ask my students these very same questions. Tell me about your race. And my Hispanic kids could pop stuff off. My black kids had tons of stuff to say. My Native American kids, my Hmong kids would be able to talk about their culture. And my white kids would say, I'm American. Well, we're all American, right? So how is that any different? And so one of the problems that I typically saw, and I see even in the workplaces today, is that people will be upset with so-called minority groups because they've created these ways that they can make sense of the world. And so people will say, well, why is there BET, Black Entertainment Television, right? And I typically hear that from white people. I don't hear that from people of color very much, but I hear that from white people.